morning, my dear students. I'm Miss Tania Poveda. This is Accounting 3. Don't forget that it's very important you save this information on your computer or cell phone or tablet. So download it and keep it safe. And then you can check it anytime. Let's continue. Are you ready? Well, as you can see here in the screen, today we're going to talk about indicators. Did you identify the first picture, the one above? Okay, I'm talking about these little squares here. What do you think they represent? Yeah, obviously they are representing indicators, but what are indicators? Something very important, like the first connection you should do every time you hear the word indicator is numbers. Numbers, okay? When talking about indicators, we're talking about numbers. As we can see here in the picture on the right, you can represent most of the pictures with numbers. For example, money, you represent with numbers. Time, savings, learning, money or coins in this case, calculator, weather, justice, sentence, maybe banks, etc. Right? Okay, so remember this. Indicators, numbers, very important. But what kind of numbers we are going to talk about today? Today we're going to talk about economic indicators. It is numbers that are going to help us to understand how the economy of a country is working. So is it doing good or not? Are we having a positive statement or a negative statement? We can measure indicators like with round numbers or percentages. But let's read a little bit about this. An economic indicator is a metric used to assess. To assess is another way to say to test or to evaluate. To assess, measure, and evaluate, they are just here, the overall state of health of the macroeconomy. Okay? Economic indicators are often collected by a government agency or private business intelligence organization in the form of census or survey, which is then analyzed further to generate an economic indicator. Financial analysts and investors keep track of macroeconomic indicators because the economy is a source of systematic risk that affects growth or decline all industries and companies. So as I told you in the beginning, it's a way to measure how the economy is working. In this case, well, today we're going to see like a macro view of indicators and talk about indicators in our country, in Ecuador. Let's find the difference between finance and economics, because usually we think it's the same, but I'm sure that by now you already know it is not the same. So next time you hear that something or someone else saying, oh, it's the same, finance, economics, no, it's not. So let's read and find the main difference between these two terms, these two words. Let's start with finance. Finance is money provided or lent for a particular purpose, the management of money by countries, organizations, or people, the study of money management. High finance involves large amounts of money used by governments and large companies. A person's or organization's finances are the money they have and how it is managed. The related adjective is financial. From my point of view, finance, yes, it's like the money that you move, the way you manage the money, how you handle it. Usually, when talk about finance, we're also talking about papers, documents, Okay, it's like a lot of paperwork, but we're going to check about that later. Okay, let's continue with economics. Economics is the study of how money works and is used. Here we have a big difference. Calculations of whether a particular activity will be profitable. So in this case, it's how we use the money and how we use it. In this case, it's how you handle or manage the money in the case of finance. Related adjective, a profitable activity is economic. It means that it generates an economic activity, generates money, or it's profitable, is an economic activity. An unprofitable one is uneconomic, so the opposite. So when you lose money, you're working on an economic activity. If something is economical, it is cheap to buy, to use, or to do. If not, is uneconomical. That's the difference between economic and economical. When something is cheap, is economical. Okay, so reading this, we already know the difference between finance and economics, and that's very important to understand because of what we're going to continue working on today. Let's read a little bit about inflation and unemployment. Have you ever heard the expression that, oh, the inflation is really bad or really high, or the inflation rate is affecting the economy of a country? The inflation is generating unemployment or things like that? It's a very common expression that you are going to find in economy analysis, especially when talking about countries, because you measure the rate of inflation by countries. So inflation is rising prices, and the rate which they are rising is the inflation rate. Rate is a percentage, okay? The related adjective is inflationary. So you can say, for example, oh, the government it's not handling very well those inflationary activities. So it means it's generating inflation in a country. The unemployed are people without jobs in a particular area, country, etc. The level of unemployment is the number of people without a job. It's other rate that we should be concerned all around the world right now because a lot of people without jobs, it's increasing the rate of unemployment. Unemployed people are out of work and are also referred to as jobless. You probably recognize the word homeless, people without a home, right? People who live in the street, you call them homeless. So people without a job is jobless. Okay, understanding this, we're going to watch this video. So we're going to get an extra explanation about inflation. I hope that you enjoyed. It's a really good video. It's really good to know about these kind of things. And also it's very good to listen to someone different that is not me. Okay, let's see. This is not the video. Give me a second. So this is the video. Let's watch.
In June 2015, Zimbabwe began offering an exchange of $5 for 175 quadrillion Zimbabwe dollars. In 2008, their rate of inflation hit 500 billion%, and soon after, Zimbabwe abandoned their currency. So how did it get so bad, and what exactly is inflation? Well, often inflation is described as too much money chasing too few goods. What this means is if there is too much physical currency floating around the economy, then the money's worth is diluted. Inflation and deflation are tightly regulated by the government, and if they weren't, unchecked inflation of currency could lead to market chaos. In severe cases, a person's life savings could become essentially worthless. There are many variable factors that play into inflation. One is the confidence that users have in their currency. Ever since the gold standard was abandoned, money stopped having real worth based on precious metals. So modern currency only has value because the government and its citizens say it does, and that they believe in it. However, when the guarantee of that money's value by the government is threatened by something drastic like war, it loses some intrinsic value. Another factor that affects the value of money is defined by the ratio of buying and producing in the economy, or supply and demand. In a year, let's say, if everyone bought the exact amount of goods and services which were produced, this ratio would be 1:1, and there would be no inflation or deflation of prices. However, if more or less goods are produced than normal, or more or less people want to buy them, prices can fluctuate. The Federal Reserve keeps watch of inflation patterns via long-term price indexes, or the change in inflation rates for various categories of products. The CPI, or Consumer Price Index, and the PPI, or Producer Price Index, are two commonly used measurements. One looks at how much consumers are paying for products, and the other looks at the prices listed by the producer. Without government regulation, an imbalance in the market's supply and demand can be exacerbated by a lack of public confidence in the currency. When that happens, hyperinflation or hyperdeflation may occur, and normal items can wind up costing either a fraction or several hundred times what they normally do. For instance, when Germany was struggling to pay its World War I debts in 1923, their currency lost investor confidence and went into hyperinflation. According to reports back then, a simple newspaper cost a wheelbarrow full of German marks. For Zimbabwe, the worst of their hyperinflation woes are past. But even presently, many continue to improvise their currency by giving change in things like pens, candy, and bubblegum. Soon, hopefully, Zimbabwe's currency will stabilize, and people can continue to grow the market economy with an effective system of money. If you're interested in learning more about Zimbabwe and the situation there, check out our video about the racial struggles between black and white farmers.
Once in power, Mugabe was quick to negotiate a deal with the British government to help transfer land from the colonizing population of British farmers to the native population of black Zimbabweans.
Thanks for joining us on Test Tube.
Okay, that's it so far. I hope you enjoyed. But before we continue, I'm coming back to this special part here. Here it is. Okay, so this is, like, for me, the best representation to explain inflation. Basically, is buying less for more money. So sometimes you can define inflation not exactly as the rising of prices, but buy the same for more, or buy less for more. That's it. Buy less by the same amount of money, or the thing is that your money is losing value. And the best example they say was this one, the Zimbabwe country. So you see how much money was $1? So this is like really, really bad, really bad. In 1999 in Ecuador, before we changed from sucres to dollars, $1 was 25,000 sucres. So we're talking about an amount of money around here on these zeros here. So from here, $25,000 sucres was $1. So it was a good idea to change the currency those days because inflation was about to finish with our economy. So things went really bad, but thanks to that, we had and we have had one of the strongest economies in South America just because we have the backup of dollars. So that was a very good decision at the time, at that moment. Otherwise, we will be like this or even worse. It's very important we understand the value of the money that we use, because then that is going to give a backup for other countries to invest, to put their money in our country so we can grow our economy. While saying this, let's continue with the class. It was good to hear a different explanation about inflation, that it didn't come only from me. These are some of the consequences of inflation. Probably if you ask your parents, they can help you more. If you have grandparents, it would be great if you go to them and ask them what they know about inflation, or probably if they can tell you about what happened with inflation and with our currency, with sucres, between 1999 and 2000, so 20 years ago. Well, some of the consequences are competitiveness, investment, distribution of income, industrial relations, fiscal drag, hyperinflation, money illusion, menu costs. Well, now let's talk about trade. And then I'm going to explain the relation between trade and inflation and economics and that kind of things. So this class is like a peel of what is going on around the world, and especially in Ecuador. It's like a very, very short summarize about real economy nowadays. So trade, which is other way to say negotiations, okay? That's why you had the building the World Trade Center. It was the center of negotiations. Trade is I give you, you give me. I give you a product, you give me money. I give you money, you give me product. That is trade. Other way for commerce or negotiation. Okay, the balance of payment. You know what a balance is? The balance of payments is the difference between the money coming into a country and that going out. The trade balance is the difference between payments for imports, so the things that you import from other countries, goods and services from abroad, and payments for exports. It is the products and services we sell to other countries. For example, what do we sell to other countries? What do as Ecuadorians produce and sell to other countries? What comes to your mind? Yeah, probably banana, yes. Flowers, yes. Cacao, oil. Oil is like our number one exportation. Shrimps, fish, fruit, and that kind of things, right? If you pay attention, all of the products I just mentioned are raw materials. So we are in a primary sector. We are not converting those raw materials into finished goods. We are selling these raw materials to other countries. What do? They produce finished goods and they sell in their countries other products. Sometimes something very funny happens. We sell raw material to other country. That other country produces something else with that, And then what do you think that happened next? They sell those finished goods to us. And we think it's imported when they are actually using our raw material. So that's something Ecuador should work more in, like industrialization of our raw material. But that's just my opinion. Well, coming back to this balance of payment. When a country exports more than imports, it has a trade surplus. Surplus. Look at this beautiful word. It means you have money. Surplus. Surplus, yeah. So exports more than imports, surplus. Or the opposite. What's the opposite? When you import more than what you export, you call it deficit or trade deficit. And it's the same in the companies when you are talking about the balance, the general balance in a company. When you lose money, you call it deficit. So the amount of this surplus or deficit is the trade gap. That difference between them, positive or negative, is called trade gap. You got it? Maybe these pictures can help us to understand better. So this is the balance of trade. Let's suppose that it's Ecuador. So we have exports like going down and imports going up. So we are importing more than what we sell. In this case, we're having a deficit. This is other way to represent, other way to show you what's a surplus and what is a deficit. So let's pay attention to the green line here. You see it's 0. So this is like the balance, the right balance. When you have money coming, more exports than imports, we have a surplus. When we have money going out of the country, more than what you export, so you have more imports than exports, you have a deficit. This is something really beautiful, actually, to understand. So next time you listen in the news or you hear someone else conversations or talking about these numbers and economy with adults, you will understand this a lot better. Okay, and finally, here we have the growth and GDP. What's the meaning of GDP? Gross Domestic Product. In Spanish, we call it PIB, P-I-B. I'm not allowed to speak in Spanish, so I can't say it. But yes, PIB is how we call it in Spanish, PIB. So that's Gross Domestic Product or GDP. So economic output is the value of goods and services produced in a country or area. That's the output, the production. Output is other way to say production. Is the value of all the goods and services produced in a particular country. That's the GDP or PIB. The size of an economy is also sometimes measured in terms of gross national product or GNP, or in Spanish, Producto Interno Bruto. Did you hear me? No? Producto Interno Bruto. Okay. This also includes payments from abroad, for example, from investment. So growth is when output in the economy increases, so the production of a country grows. The growth rate is the speed which a company's economy grows and gets bigger and bigger. And that's it so far. I would like to show you this site. This is the International Monetary Fund site. I want you to see it so you can check it and get some information. I was checking on information for Ecuador. I was kind of curious about what information they had from Ecuador, and I found this. It would be very nice if you check it too, and you see if you click on this, you can see like what is the GDP growth, like the real GDP growth, or the current prices in GDP, per capita, it means per person, current prices. This is like wonderful information that you can use to learn more and to understand what is going on nowadays in Ecuador. Look at this, the inflation rate, end of period consumer prices, populations, millions of people. This is the population, unemployment rate. We have all kind of information. I recommend you to check on this site. It's a really, really good one. Okay, so to finish, this is the position of the countries according to their GDP. So let's check which country is number one in production. South Sudan. Can you believe it? You probably expected to read United States or China or Russia, but no, it's not. It's South Sudan. So I dare you to find Ecuador here somewhere. I'm going to show you 192 countries. So good luck. Pay attention on the first countries in production, South Sudan. Look for Ecuador, it is here somewhere, and pay attention in the last countries, which ones are the last countries in the growing. What's going on there? You see they are in red. That's not good at all. Okay, I'm not going to stop here because it's like a lot of countries and they will take us a life to read all of them and to analyze what happened there in their economies. But to finish, I would like you to complete this information. This is one for the whole group. So it's like a work. It's a group work, as we can see here in this GIF on the right. Complete the following information about Ecuador. So nowadays, right now, what is the inflation rate? What is the unemployment rate? And what is the GDP or PIB in Spanish right now? You can find this information on these two sites. Don't trust in any site. Trust in very good ones like this one, Banco Central del Ecuador, or International Monetary, oops, I forgot the F. Okay, or what's the meaning of that letter F? Oh, yeah, fund, of course. Or the International Monetary Fund. These two sites, you can click here. This is going to be in your emails. And if they are not too long to copy on any browser and check it. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sure that right now you learned like a lot. I'm happy for that. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Wash your hands. Stay home. Keep safe, okay? Big hugs. Bye-bye.